Have you ever wondered what it feels like to lose everything in 15 minutes? What would you do if your boss stole your life's work and threw you out like yesterday's trash? Would you crawl away defeated, or would you fight back with everything you had? I'm about to tell you exactly what happened when I chose to fight. And trust me, you've never heard a revenge story quite like this one. At 4:11 p.m., my world shattered like the floor-to-ceiling windows surrounding Frank Grayson's corner office. But here's the question that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. What if I told you that getting fired was exactly what I needed to become unstoppable? Strategic restructuring, he said, not bothering to look up from his mahogany desk. The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. I stood there, Grace Miller, 34 years old, holding a cardboard box that contained 3 years of my life at Grayson Systems. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. This wasn't about restructuring. This was about Frank wanting to steal credit for my autonomous defense platform project, the breakthrough that could revolutionize military operations. It's not personal, Frank added, finally meeting my eyes with that practiced smile that had fooled investors for years. But I knew better. I'd seen him in the boardroom yesterday, presenting my algorithms as his own innovation. I'd watched him dismiss my team's contributions while positioning himself as the visionary behind our work. The security guard shifted uncomfortably by the door. Outside, Seattle's skyline glittered in the late afternoon sun, oblivious to the betrayal unfolding in this glass box 30 floors above the city. I turned toward the door, then stopped. Frank thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming next. The elevator descended in silence, each floor marking my transition from employee to something else entirely. Something Frank Grayson would learn to fear. My reflection stared back from the polished steel doors, auburn hair pulled into a tight bun, green eyes that my late father always said could see through walls and into tomorrow. Right now, they were seeing possibilities Frank couldn't imagine. Floor 25. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a draft email I'd prepared weeks ago. Not out of paranoia, but preparation. In defense contracting, you always had contingency plans. Floor 20. Miller Defense Group wasn't just a name I'd registered 6 months ago, it was my insurance policy. A carefully assembled team of engineers who believed in innovation over politics. Jesse Kim, my lead systems architect, and Clay Rodriguez, our hardware specialist, had been working their notice periods at Grayson while secretly developing our independent platform. They'd been waiting for this moment as much as I had. Floor 15. The email was addressed to Harriet Nolan, Chief of Advanced Procurement at the Department of Defense. We'd met at 3 different conferences over the past year, where she'd specifically mentioned the Pentagon's urgent need for the exact breakthrough my team had developed. Her last words to me were, "Grace, when you're ready to move beyond corporate politics, call me." Floor 10. My finger hovered over the send button. The elevator dinged. Ground floor. As the doors opened, I realized something that made my pulse quicken. Getting fired might be the best thing that ever happened to me. The Seattle drizzle hit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk, but I barely felt it. My entire focus was on the phone in my hand and the email that could change everything. Subject, Miller Defense Group, Autonomous Defense Platform Proposal. I'd crafted every word carefully. This wasn't some desperate Hail Mary from a recently fired employee. This was a calculated move from someone who'd been planning her exit strategy for months. The coffee shop across from Grayson Systems buzzed with the usual late afternoon crowd. I found a corner table and opened my laptop. The prototype footage was ready, 37 minutes of our autonomous platform performing maneuvers that would make Pentagon brass sit up and take notice. My hands moved across the keyboard with surgical precision. Harriet, Miller Defense Group has developed the autonomous tactical solution we discussed at the Arlington Symposium. Our platform demonstrates 340% improved efficiency over current systems, with real-time adaptive capabilities that exceed NATO specifications. The enclosed demonstration shows live field tests. We're prepared to discuss exclusive deployment options. Grace Miller, CEO, Miller Defense Group ***. I attached the encrypted files and hovered over send. Once I hit that button, there was no going back. Frank would eventually discover what I'd done. The question was whether Harriet would respond before he could interfere. 4:14 p.m. I hit send. 12 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from a DC area code. Grace Miller? The voice was crisp, authoritative, unmistakably Harriet Nolan. Speaking. I stepped outside the coffee shop, my heart hammering against my ribs. I just watched your demonstration. I've been waiting for you to make this move for months. How fast can you get to Washington? The question hit me like a lightning bolt. In all my contingency planning, I'd hoped for interest, maybe a request for more information. I hadn't dared hope for immediate action. How fast do you need me there? Tomorrow morning. This is exactly what we've been waiting for. The Joint Chiefs are meeting Thursday to finalize the Autonomous Defense Initiative. If your platform can do what that footage suggests. She trailed off, but I could hear the excitement in her voice. The Pentagon had been shopping for this technology for 2 years, ever since China's advances in autonomous systems had shifted the global balance of power. It can do more than the footage suggests, I said, allowing myself a small smile. We've been conservative in our demonstrations. Good. Because conservative won't win wars. Can you bring your team? I thought of Jesse and Clay, probably still at their desks at Grayson Systems, unaware that their world was about to change. Absolutely. Excellent. I'm sending you coordinates for tomorrow's meeting. Come prepared to change everything, Grace. And Grace? Yes? Welcome to the big leagues. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, hardly believing what had just happened. Then I remembered, Frank still had no idea what was coming. At 11:47 p.m., my Capitol Hill apartment looked like a war room. Jesse and Clay sat at my dining table, laptops open, their faces lit by the blue glow of code streams and technical specifications. You're telling me we have 8 hours to refine a presentation that could land us a Pentagon contract? Jessie's fingers flew across her keyboard as she spoke, dark hair falling into her eyes. Not refine, deliver, I corrected, pacing behind them. I've been perfecting this pitch for months. Now it's time to present it. I pulled out detailed presentation files I'd been preparing. The autonomous defense contract. The one Frank thinks he's going to win with our stolen algorithms. Clay looked up from his hardware diagnostics. Speaking of Frank, have you considered what happens when he finds out? The man doesn't exactly handle betrayal well. I'd worked with Clay for 3 years. The former Navy engineer had a way of cutting through emotion to identify real problems. He was right, Frank would retaliate. The question was how and when. Frank's the least of our worries right now, I said, though a knot formed in my stomach. We need to focus on proving our platform can outperform anything Grayson Systems has developed. Jessie spun her laptop around. Then you're going to love this. I've been running simulations all evening. Our autonomous system isn't just better than Frank's version, it's better than anything else on the market by a factor of 3. The screen showed a side-by-side comparison that made my breath catch. Our platform's response times, accuracy rates, and adaptive capabilities created a performance curve that looked almost too good to be true. This is going to change everything, I whispered. Clay's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. We might have a problem. Frank knows. Clay held up his phone, showing a text from someone still inside Grayson Systems. Security flagged your email to Harriet. He's called an emergency board meeting for 6 a.m. The room went silent except for the hum of our laptops. I felt the familiar chill that came with operating in hostile territory, something I'd learned during my brief stint with military intelligence before entering the private sector. What's his move? Jessie asked, already thinking 3 steps ahead like the chess master she was. I pulled up Frank's psychological profile, a mental file I'd been building for 3 years. Narcissistic, territorial, risk-averse when cornered but vicious when he felt threatened. He wouldn't attack directly, that wasn't his style. He'll try to undermine our credibility. Claim we stole proprietary technology, maybe suggest we're unstable or untrustworthy. I started gathering my files. We need to be on the first flight to DC. Actually, Clay said, checking his phone again, we need to leave now. My contact says Frank's already made calls to Pentagon procurement. He's claiming you violated your non-compete agreement. The blood drained from my face. A non-compete challenge could delay everything, potentially long enough for Frank to present his inferior version of our technology as the official Grayson Systems proposal. Did you? Jessie asked quietly. I pulled out a folder I'd hoped never to need. The Miller Defense Group patents were filed 8 months ago. Every algorithm, every hardware configuration, every line of code. All documented and timestamped before I even started the Grayson project. Clay's eyes widened. You've been planning this for 8 months? Longer. I grabbed my bag. Frank taught me that in this business, you're either the predator or the prey. But as we headed for the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that Frank had one more card to play. The Pentagon at 7:30 a.m. was exactly what I'd expected. Purposeful movement, hushed conversations, and the weight of decisions that shaped global security. Harriet met us at the main entrance, her silver hair and sharp blue suit projecting authority that made even seasoned generals step aside. Grace, I need you to know, we've received some concerning calls about your team's background. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. From Frank Grayson? Among others. He's claiming proprietary theft and suggesting your technology is actually Grayson Systems property. Harriet's eyes searched mine. Please tell me you have documentation proving otherwise. I handed her the patent folder. Filed 8 months ago. Every component of our system is independently developed and legally protected. She flipped through the documents, her frown deepening. This is thorough. Almost too thorough. Grace, how long have you been planning to leave Grayson? The question hung in the air like a challenge. In the distance, I could hear the echo of footsteps in marble corridors, the sound of power moving through the building. Since the day I realized Frank Grayson would rather steal innovation than foster it, I answered honestly. Harriet nodded slowly. Good. Because what I'm about to show you requires that level of strategic thinking. She led us deeper into the building, through corridors lined with portraits of military heroes and past offices where the future of American defense was decided daily. Our temporary clearance badges gave us access to this level, though I knew we were being monitored every step. We stopped at a conference room guarded by 2 Marines. Before we go in, Harriet said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, you should know that Frank Grayson isn't your only competition in there. She opened the door, and my blood turned to ice. Seated at the far end of the conference table was Dr. Elizabeth Vance, former MIT professor and current CTO of Prometheus Industries, the most successful defense contractor on the East Coast. Next to her sat General Carver, whose reputation for ending military careers with a single recommendation was legendary throughout the Pentagon. But it was the third figure that made my pulse spike. James Kellerman, Frank's head of legal affairs and the man responsible for the non-compete agreement that could destroy everything. His presence here meant Frank's complaints had triggered a formal due diligence investigation. Ms. Miller, General Carver's voice could have cut glass. I understand you're here to present technology that may or may not belong to you. Harriet shot me a warning look. This wasn't the friendly presentation I'd expected, this was a tribunal. General, the technology belongs to Miller Defense Group, as documented in these patents filed 8 months ago. I placed copies of our documentation in front of each person. Dr. Vance didn't even glance at the papers. Patents can be challenged. What matters is whether your team can deliver what you're promising. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Prometheus has been developing autonomous defense systems for 3 years. We have operational prototypes, established supply chains, and proven reliability. Which brings us to the real question, Kellerman interjected, sliding a thick folder across the table. Can someone who stole proprietary algorithms from their former employer be trusted with national security? I opened the folder and felt my world tilt. Inside were internal Grayson Systems emails, technical specifications, and what appeared to be evidence of industrial espionage, all with my name attached. The documents were fake, but they were convincing fakes. Interesting, I said, closing the folder calmly. Now let me show you something equally interesting. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the room's display system. If Mr. Kellerman's documents are accurate, then I somehow managed to steal technology that didn't exist when I left Grayson Systems. The screen filled with timestamped development logs, showing the evolution of our autonomous platform. Every entry was dated and digitally signed, creating an unbreakable chain of evidence. These logs show continuous development starting 14 months ago, I continued, watching Kellerman's confident expression begin to crack. Notice the breakthrough algorithm in entry 847, dated 6 months before Grayson Systems even began their autonomous project. Dr. Vance leaned forward, studying the data with professional interest. These development patterns are impressive. But patterns can be fabricated. Which is why I brought this. Jesse stepped forward and placed a small device on the table. This is our original prototype, built in my garage 18 months ago. Every component predates Grace's work at Grayson. It was documented, filmed, and validated by independent engineers before any of us joined the Grayson project. The device was crude compared to our current platform, but it was unmistakably the foundation of our technology. Clay activated it with his phone, and the room watched as the small unit performed basic autonomous functions that would have been impossible with existing Grayson technology. General Carver's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. How advanced is your current platform? Advanced enough to make this entire discussion irrelevant, I said, pulling up live satellite feeds from our testing facility. What you're about to see is a real-time demonstration of our platform engaging simulated enemy units. The room fell silent as our autonomous system navigated complex battlefield scenarios with fluid precision. It adapted to changing conditions, coordinated multiple units, and completed objectives with an efficiency that made traditional systems look primitive. Kellerman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. Problem, James? I asked sweetly. Frank wants to speak with you immediately. Tell Frank I'm busy. But you might want to let him know that his stolen algorithms just failed their first Pentagon demonstration. General Carver closed the laptop displaying the failed Grayson Systems demonstration and turned to me with newfound respect. Your platform just outperformed every system we've tested in the last 5 years. The question is whether your team can scale production to meet our timeline. That depends on the timeline, I replied, though my mind was racing with possibilities I'd barely dared to consider. Dr. Vance spoke up, her earlier hostility replaced by professional calculation. Prometheus could provide manufacturing support. This technology represents a significant advancement over our current capabilities. The offer hit me like a chess move I hadn't anticipated. Elizabeth Vance wasn't just acknowledging our superiority. She was proposing partnership with the company that could have been our biggest rival. Interesting proposition, I said carefully. But I'd need guarantees that Miller Defense Group maintains control of the core technology. Harriet was taking notes, her expression unreadable. Before we discuss partnerships, I need to address the elephant in the room. Mr. Kellerman, your allegations about stolen technology appear to be unfounded. Do you wish to withdraw them? Kellerman was typing furiously on his phone, probably communicating with Frank. I'll need to consult with my client before. His phone rang. We could all hear Frank's voice through the speaker, high-pitched with rage. Tell them Grace Miller is a corporate spy and industrial thief. Tell them she has no authority to. Kellerman quickly muted the call, his face red with embarrassment. I think that answers our question, General Carver said dryly. Ms. Miller, when can you begin? But before I could answer, Harriet's aide burst into the room with an urgent message that made her face go white. What is it? I asked. Frank Grayson just filed federal charges against you for theft of classified defense technology. Wait, can you believe this plot twist? Just when Grace thought she'd won, Frank pulls out his biggest weapon yet. If you're as invested in this story as I am, and you want to see how Grace fights back against federal charges, show some love by hitting that subscribe button and smashing the like button. Trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. The silence in the room was deafening. Federal charges meant FBI involvement, potential arrest, and the end of everything I'd worked for. Even if the charges were baseless, the legal process could take months, time I didn't have. On what grounds? General Carver's voice carried a dangerous edge. Kellerman cleared his throat nervously. My client has evidence that Ms. Miller accessed classified government specifications while developing her platform. Specifications that were shared with Grayson Systems under strict confidentiality agreements. My heart sank. Frank had found the one angle that could destroy me, regardless of the truth. If he could prove I'd seen classified documents, it wouldn't matter that our technology was independently developed. General, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, I'd like to request a closed-door review of my security clearance and access logs. If Frank has evidence of wrongdoing, let him present it under oath. Dr. Vance was studying me with sharp intelligence. You seem remarkably calm for someone facing federal charges. Because I'm innocent. And because Frank G.R.A. Eisen just made a critical mistake. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a recording app. This entire conversation has been recorded under standard Pentagon meeting protocols, including Frank's accusations and Mr. Kellerman's statements. If this goes to court, it will become public record. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Frank's false accusations, his attempts to undermine a Pentagon procurement process, his claim to technology that predated his own development. All of it would be exposed in federal court. Kellerman's phone buzzed again. This time, Frank's voice was barely controlled panic. Stop talking. Get out of there now. Too late for that, I said. Frank wanted to play hardball. Now he gets to explain to federal prosecutors why he filed false charges in an attempt to interfere with national defense procurement. General Carver stood up. Ms. Miller, I believe we're done here. Harriet, draft the letter of intent. We're moving forward. But as we gathered our materials, Clay grabbed my arm. Grace, we've got a bigger problem. Frank isn't just desperate, he's dangerous. 24 hours later, I sat in the same Pentagon conference room, but everything had changed. The letter of intent in front of me represented exclusive negotiations for a $1.9 billion autonomous defense contract, the largest military technology deal of the decade. Frank's federal charges had been withdrawn after emergency FBI investigation revealed fabricated evidence and attempted interference with government procurement. Harriet had used emergency procurement powers to fast-track our provisional letter of intent pending formal review. James Kellerman was facing his own legal troubles for filing false documentation with federal authorities. This is just the beginning, Harriet said as I signed the document. If your platform performs as promised in field trials, Miller Defense Group will become one of the Pentagon's primary technology partners. Dr. Vance had stayed for the signing, representing the new partnership between Prometheus Industries and my company. Our combined resources will ensure rapid deployment. You've created something remarkable, Grace. But even as I savored the moment, Clay's warning echoed in my mind. Frank Grayson wasn't someone who accepted defeat gracefully. Corporate warfare was one thing, but a man facing personal and professional destruction could become unpredictable. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your Pentagon contract. Enjoy it while it lasts. A friend, I showed the message to Clay, who immediately began scanning the room for security threats. We need to get you out of here. Now. Wait, Jessie said, her laptop displaying something that made her face pale. Grace, look at this. Someone just tried to hack our development servers. They're using Grayson Systems infrastructure, but the attack patterns are military grade. She looked up grimly. I've already notified military intelligence. They're investigating the breach in real time. The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. Frank hadn't just tried to steal our technology, he'd revealed our capabilities to someone who posed a much more serious threat. Who else knew about today's signing? I asked Harriet. Her expression turned grim. Besides Pentagon personnel? Only the Foreign Intelligence Briefing Committee. The room suddenly felt very cold. Foreign intelligence? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Harriet was already on her secure phone, speaking in rapid military code. When she hung up, her face was granite. Grace, I need you to listen carefully. 3 weeks ago, Chinese intelligence attempted to penetrate our autonomous defense research. We thought we'd contained the breach. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Frank's desperation, the timing of the federal charges, the military-grade hack attempts, he's been compromised. General Carver materialized beside us, flanked by 2 security officers. Ms. Miller, we're implementing Protocol 7. Your team will be relocated to a secure facility while we investigate the extent of the breach. Relocated? Clay stood up, his Navy training evident in his posture. General, with respect, Grace's technology is too valuable to hide. If foreign agents are involved, running makes us look guilty. And staying makes us targets, Jessie countered, her fingers flying across her keyboard. The hack attempt is still ongoing. They're specifically trying to access our autonomous decision-making algorithms. I looked around the room, at Harriet's concerned expression, at Dr. Vance's calculating eyes, at the security officers waiting for orders. Everyone was trying to protect me, but they were missing the real opportunity. What if we don't run? I said slowly. What if we use this? General Carver frowned. Explain. Frank's betrayal, the foreign intelligence interest, the attempted hacks, they prove our technology is exactly what America needs. Instead of hiding, we accelerate deployment. Make our platform operational before anyone can steal or sabotage it. Harriet shook her head. Too risky. If the technology falls into enemy hands, it won't, I interrupted, pulling up our system architecture. Because I built in a safeguard Frank never knew about. I showed them the hidden protocols buried in our code, self-destruct sequences, remote shutdown capabilities, and authentication requirements that made our technology useless without our direct oversight. This isn't just a defense platform, I continued. It's a weapon that only works for those we choose to trust. Dar. Vance smiled for the first time since I'd met her. Brilliant. And terrifying. General Carver was studying the technical specifications with growing admiration. How soon can you have operational units ready? 72 hours, I said, hoping I was right. But as security escorted us toward the exit, my phone rang with a call from Frank Grayson himself. Grace. Frank's voice was hollow, defeated. We need to talk. I almost hung up, but something in his tone made me hesitate. Talk? You mean like we talked before you fired me? Or like we talked before you filed false federal charges? I know what I did. And I know why you hate me. But there are things you don't understand, things that go beyond our personal conflict. I put the call on speaker so my team could hear. We were in a secure Pentagon vehicle, racing through DC traffic toward our temporary headquarters. Try me, I said. The Chinese approached me 6 months ago. They knew about your project before I did. They offered me $50 million for the autonomous platform specifications. The admission hung in the air like smoke. Clay and Jesse exchanged glances, while I felt a mixture of vindication and disgust. And? I prompted. I told them no. But they made it clear that wasn't an option. They had leverage, photographs of financial irregularities, evidence of securities violations. Things that could destroy not just me, but dozens of innocent employees. I closed my eyes, understanding finally dawning. So you decided to steal my technology and sell it to save yourself. I decided to steal your technology to keep it away from them. When that failed and you went to the Pentagon anyway, I tried to destroy your credibility entirely. Grace, they don't want to buy your platform, they want to destroy it. Your algorithms are so advanced that they make Chinese autonomous systems obsolete overnight. The vehicle pulled up to a nondescript building in Roslyn. Through the window, I could see other Pentagon vehicles and personnel who were clearly military intelligence. Frank, if what you're saying is true, why file federal charges? Why try to destroy me? His laugh was bitter. Because when theft and sabotage failed, I thought if I could discredit you completely, the Pentagon would abandon autonomous development entirely. Better to delay American capabilities than hand them to our enemies. I was wrong, and desperate. I felt an unexpected surge of something like respect for my former boss. His methods were deplorable, but his intentions, Grace, Frank's voice turned urgent. They know about the Pentagon contract. They know you're operational in 72 hours. They're not going to wait. The line went dead just as our escort opened the vehicle doors. Standing on the sidewalk, watching our arrival with professional interest, was a woman I recognized from intelligence briefings, Dr. Li Wei, cultural attaché at the Chinese embassy and suspected intelligence operative. She smiled and walked away as we entered the building. 72 hours had just become the most important deadline of my life. 3 months later, the Wall Street Journal headline read, Miller Defense Group revolutionizes military technology, $1. 9B contract signals new era in American defense innovation. Grace Miller had done more than just get revenge on Frank Grayson. She'd changed the entire landscape of American defense technology. Her platform became the backbone of the nation's autonomous defense systems, protecting countless lives and securing America's technological superiority for decades to come. But the real victory? Grace proved that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the greatest breakthroughs. Sometimes getting fired isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your legend. Frank Grayson's attempt to steal her life's work had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying Grace, he'd unleashed her full potential and handed her the motivation to build something extraordinary. As Grace often says in interviews today, the best revenge isn't personal. It's changing the world. So what do you think? Could you have bounced back from betrayal like Grace did? Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to steal your success? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of corporate revenge and triumph inspired you, show some love by hitting that like button and sharing this with someone who needs to hear that setbacks can become comebacks. And hey, if you want more incredible true stories of people who turned their worst moments into their greatest victories, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more amazing stories with you. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired by the wrong person.